Hi, and welcome back to Behind the Mic with Follower. I'm Joe.
I'm Nick.
And I'm Ollie.
This is part 3 of our 3-part series of our recent talk about the lockdown and the effects it's had on the music industry. As we know, the music industry has faced many tough moments over the generations, not at least of all the invention of the internet, and the pivot through vinyl to CD, and MP3 to streaming services, the rise of YouTube stardom, and how this has all reshaped the economics of the business. Over the recent 6 months or so, we've obviously seen a hard time for the music industry with the lockdown that's been in place. But let's talk about some of the highlights we've seen that exemplify the resilience and natural evolution, and talk about whether some of these changes might be here to stay, or what the world of music might look like post-pandemic. Over the last 6 months, guys, we've seen obviously online gigs, streaming, different charity and fundraising, and loads of other things that people have obviously come together on to help out the music industry at this time. What have you guys seen recently, or what would you guys say you've picked up on that has taken your notice the most?
I guess like one of the most basic things is just media consumption itself. So with everyone being locked at home, it's no big surprise. We've seen all over the press. Disney Plus got insane subscriber numbers in its first kind of few months of lockdown. Media consumption itself, and Netflix binges, video gaming, just keeping tunes going at home, where you've kind of now got control over your own music. Radio listenership is up, and people's habits are changing, I guess, because you're in a different routine. But there's like pluses and minuses, like you're not listening in the car on your commute anymore, but you're now like at home the whole time, and you can keep the tunes going all day. So I think some of the funniest stuff in a way is when we're seeing what people have done, like coronavirus and quarantine themed playlists, like Can't Touch This and Staying Alive, getting like blared out, like they were in the office, to be honest, like just before all of this actually turned into a formalised lockdown. So it's interesting just seeing how that baseline has changed and picked up.
Yeah, I've seen massive change in what I've been doing over the last 6 months and how I've been using social media, apps, videos, streaming. I've just got some figures here. Netflix and YouTube and Twitch have actually said that since the start of lockdown, there's been a 30% rise in the use of their services, which is interesting because some streaming services like Spotify are reporting that they've seen roughly 11% drop in streaming. So I think people where, as you say, are in a different routine and have been sat at home doing nothing. I think a lot more people are obviously now deciding to binge watch TV shows and obviously get stuck into watching TV and films. They obviously haven't had a chance to sit and watch for a while. So, I don't know. I think that might harm the industry a bit. I mean, I was a bit surprised to see it down 11%. But at the same time, it's not as bad as what it could be, I guess, to be honest.
Yeah, it's funny because it's like different habits, isn't it? Streaming's often been seen as this thing that almost depletes the industry a bit because it takes away from, we talked about in the last couple of episodes, the lack of hard purchases of like pressed albums and music and stuff. But now it's almost become the one thing that might, to some extent, save it. The fact that streaming services obviously were like, we've talked in the previous episode about how they're like impacting lack of bought albums and stuff. But now it's one of the few things that's like on the rise and might be like helping preserve the industry.
Yeah. No, I agree with that actually. It's it's interesting because I think there are a lot of artists now who actually rely quite heavily on streaming for their income. Like there's a band with Johnny Frank, and he's like the only member. I think I spoke to you about this, Nick. But the band's called Bill Murray, and
oh yeah,
the guy said in an interview that he literally relies entirely on streaming. About 90% on streaming for his income, and the guy literally just posted on Instagram saying he's bought a new house. So it seems to be doing quite well for him, to be fair.
Lucky for some, right?
Yeah, mate.
I have to be honest, when I saw the stats, which I think I said in part 2,
That's right,
about how streaming now makes up 46%. Some artists' income now. I presume they're talking to slightly bigger artists with signed on bigger labels, obviously, because I know for a fact smaller artists rely way more on the live performance shows, and that's until you obviously sign a decent deal with a label and you're getting good advertisement and obviously publishing and obviously getting good money from your streaming. It's not making up much. I was actually just genuinely shocked because obviously when streaming first came into the music industry and when YouTube and these services came out, a lot of people hated them because they were so against how much money it was going to take out of, from, like Nick said earlier, the physical like idea of going into a shop and buying a CD, buying a record, having to actually, if you wanted one song off an album, you had to buy a whole album. That was like, do you know what I mean, 7, 8, 9, 10 quid. Now it's like, wow, I can go on iTunes and spend 60p and get that one song, often actually taking the time to listen to the rest of that band's music and actually have to buy all of their stuff. And I can see where that's come from, but it's, in some ways it's good to see that maybe there is some money starting to go into streaming now. It's actually allowing artists, like when times like this happen, for fans and artists still to stay connected and stay able to buy and sell music and listen to music and everything, which allows obviously them to keep their livelihoods and their incomes going.
I think you're quite right. It's obviously something that is much more. There'll be a handful of artists of kind of more mid-tier who will probably get a significant volume of their income from streaming, but the big success stories, as you say, are the larger, more established artists. I mean, we could probably do a whole other podcast on this alone and the impact of streaming services. I think if you look across the different payment models of each of the different platforms, it's between, like, 1,000 to 7,000 streams pretty much to earn like 1 hour's minimum wage income, and that's like if you were a solo artist, not splitting it 5 ways between a band. So it's tough, yeah.
Exactly, and you have to remember as well, for signed artists, that's not taking into consideration maybe like other people, like labels, publishers, do you know what I mean, other like contracts they've got that they have been paid, that, or what's the word, like advances or contracts they've signed, which obviously mean that people are going to have like a say to how much they get out of their royalties. I mean, in the day, like you say, it could be feeding a lot more mouths than just one. So
I think we saw there were a couple of like really nice little success stories, which I guess, again, big artists, but from the kind of early lockdown period. Dua Lipa, her like Future Nostalgia album leaked early, and yet still got her first #1 album in the UK and broke 3 different like streaming records. So it's, even where the content gets out there in this world where it's very like commodity based, it's still able to really gain traction. And I think one of the most interesting things is looking at like the new ways that music is catching on and emerging. Like The Weeknd is already big, as in The Weeknd the artist, but obviously, like with the rise of like TikTok videos and so on, which has been just absolutely taken off during this lockdown period, his like Blinding Lights videos, which I've found myself doing a dance challenge of as well, like was the biggest first week sales of 2020. It was #1 in like 17 countries, the album for it.
Hold the phone. You have a TikTok account?
I don't actually. I've never uploaded a TikTok video. I did a private recording of it to send to my mate for his birthday because a bunch of us were sent.
Private TikTok. Ow.
You are totally warping my words.
Nah, it's fine. It's just nice to know. Mate, it's just nice to know that after the 6 months to a year I've known you, that there's just some things I still don't know about you. So it's just, it's interesting when you find these things out about someone.
And I'll send you some private videos, mate. Don't worry.
Oh, I'm all right, mate. Don't worry. I'm expecting them, of course, in the future.
Or in a couple of hours when I've had a glass of wine.
Right. So Dua Lipa's Future Nostalgia album. Obviously, that had the songs Physical on it, so I heard that on the radio loads at work, so I guess it was obviously getting loads of airtime, though obviously, like you say, it leaked. It obviously must have done quite well. But did she get a chance to tour it? Because obviously during this time I've seen a lot of bands are doing online gigs and shows. Like, did she do anything to like sort of promote the album in that way, or any online shows maybe or anything? I didn't see personally. I'm a massive fan, but
I'm not sure. I haven't. Did you see anything, Ollie, in terms of actual live performances of it? Whether
I don't think saw any live performances of it. But yeah, I mean, obviously I've seen plenty from other artists, but just not. But I think one thing that's quite interesting about all the live performances is that people are doing sort of, because obviously what would usually happen if you do like a live stream, then obviously that means that it just sort of gets broadcasted out to sort of anyone who basically has internet connection. Whereas what some people are doing they're doing sort of virtual tours, so that only people in certain areas can access the live stream, which I find quite interesting. So people do like
giving it
like
a
online
bit of like exclusivity and community.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so people doing like online tours of like, Europe, for example, where they'll do one night where it's, only people from London can see it, and then only people from, I don't know, Krakow can see it, and then Moscow or something like that. which is
I'm
pretty
loving
insane.
these selections.
Yeah,
It's
mate.
a really exclusive tour. Just London, Krakow, and Moscow. Boom, done, out.
Yeah, I've seen loads of online gigs and shows. Like I think I mentioned earlier, in one of the Post Malone and
Yeah,
Sway Lee from David did some. I think
that's it. Yeah,
Suicide
Suicide Silence.
Silence. I've been doing like live
Yeah.
practices like all the time. Like the guitarist sets up his phone, he's like Facebook and live streaming all the time. There's been loads to do live online gigs. I mean, I used to do a fan chat on Instagram. She got almost 300,000 viewers. Over 350,000 live watched Instagram live battle between Little John and T-Pain. There's been loads of interaction online on the social media fans and artists during this time, which I know a lot of people this are probably like from older generations and people who don't understand the curse social media because they don't want kids like having glued to screen. They don't want people to be stuck there typing away. But something like this, it's like really saved. I hate to say it, like saved the world's arse, like because people can actually communicate and still socialize and feel like they're being social and they're not alone. People just still go around partly normal.
Well, it's the fact that it's not even
And
just
if it
gigs,
isn't-
right? It's the fact that it's like gone beyond that now. You know, it started as just people going, well, I guess I can do a live stream of a performance, but it's then you've ended up seeing like Q&As and like a proper like window into their world, especially because nothing's as polished, right? You have a few cases where they'll actually set it up with like crew and lighting and everything, but a lot of this is just streaming straight from their homes, Q&As, like interactions, you know, and collaborations with other artists. And these things aren't like a replacement for the real world experience, but they do scratch that itch, right? And they're helping. It's platforms like you were saying,
yeah.
like, you know, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Instagram Live, like all these stuff which are now like absolutely blowing up. And it was nice. You talked about that one, the live beat battle between Lil Jon and T-Pain, and that one actually again like led to a 3-way record deal between Usher, Ludacris, and Lil Jon, like within a matter of days, just because people are trying to find new ways to like monetize these opportunities. So we talk about trying to make a living from streaming, and it's like it's not just about the streaming, right? It's about new business models. Like, actually, okay, we're now doing something like, you know, here we are doing a podcast, right? But you've got people meeting and collaborating, and then realizing, wow, we click. Let's do like an online content series. Let's get it up onto IG Live. Let's do whatever. And it's just interesting seeing like even Instagram and stuff getting out there. Well, it's obviously Facebook own Instagram, but talking about, okay, we need bigger platform capacity. We've got more people streaming than we thought we were going to have. We need to find new ways for people to engage with whoever's streaming and like talk to them, and we need to work out other ways. Again, you know, they want to monetize it. They're a platform that needs to make money. So it's just really interesting seeing how the industry is trying to like rapidly evolve yet again.
Yeah, I think times like this push the industry to evolve rapidly. Do you know what I mean? I think when your back's up against the wall, you've got to do something. And I think in the day, as we said earlier, like when streaming first came about and took the place of vinyl, it's already backfooted the industry. And now this has happened. It's there has to be some good from streaming. So I think the best thing everyone can do is now use these things as much as, obviously, if you to take it back 20 years, they seem like a loss of income. They're bad. They seem like they're not good. At this time, let's see the positives. If we didn't have these services right now, a lot of people would be completely out of jobs. So it's a I mean, it's a, what's the word, I can't really think what the word would be, but there's positives and negatives, and you just see both, I guess, and be like, right, trying to take the most you can. Double-edged sword, yeah, it's perfect. There you go, Nick. Thank you. It's perfect. It's a double-edged sword, and you just got to make sure that you see both sides and try and take the positives you can from it. Hopefully, I mean, it'd be nice to see industry adapt. I mean, artists have obviously been coming together to try other things as well. Like I saw Miley Cyrus started her own Right-Minded series, trying to obviously help with charity fundraising and everything to try and help the situation so far. There's other artists as well, by the looks of it, have got involved as well. Lady Gaga's One World Together at Home, presented by Global Citizen, raised over 100 million. The WHO and associated charities.
The WHO, the World Health Organization.
Live stream featuring people.
Just making sure it wasn't all going to the band. Just chucking 102 million at the WHO.
Oh no, sorry. So I was reading, like I lost it, and then I like.
That's all good. No, I was in back. That's a fun little joke.
That's fair enough, but She through doing this, they actually managed to do an 8-hour live stream which featured Green Day's Billie Joe Armstrong, The Killers, Taylor Swift, Paul McCartney, Stevie Wonder, Lizzo, and loads of other artists. So it's really good to see all these guys kind of band together to try and make the most of what is like the opportunities that are still there, and still trying to sort of obviously help everyone out. It's what else can you do really at a time like this?
But yeah, it's true. I mean, I think it's got to a point where obviously, yeah, as you said earlier, Joe, people sort of often don't like the platforms because I don't know, it doesn't pay as much as it did in the golden days or whatever. But it's silly really because without the platforms that we have now, it wouldn't be possible for artists to really make any sort of living at all. And as you said as well, it's a case of this whole sort of lockdown is forcing innovation, I think, and it's like instead of just sort of bumbling along like we sort of were, it's just sort of forced us to literally just reach 10 years into the future and just try and pull something out of a hat in that sense, like we were talking about Suicide Silence doing their live tours and stuff. I mean, it's the first ever virtual world tour, I think it is, which is pretty insane, really. And it seems like they've really sort of, pulled out all the stops in terms of the actual production of it as well. Like hiring some enormous room that's like basically a big venue, getting all the lights, really cool, and making it look like a proper performance, that you kind of see at a big venue like an arena or something.
Yeah, and that's it. You want to give people the experience, don't you?
Exactly.
Because that's what it's all about. It's one of the reasons why people have even liked not just the contemporary artists, but you've got artists from way back that are having their like live DVD back catalogs and stuff shoved online, and you're getting suddenly it's like free to watch on YouTube. And same with things like a lot of the like national theatre performances that have been going up for like a week at a time and stuff. It's not just constrained to I want to see what's current. It's just I want the on stage experience and I want it at home.
Yeah.
So even if that's old archive footage, it's still like helps people scratch that itch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. And I just can't have seen like this kind of thing happening. If lockdown wasn't a thing, like a digital world tour wouldn't have happened now. It would have happened 10 years, 10 years from now. So
it's like you said before, mate, about being pissed off with the platforms and stuff. It's not the technology that's the problem. Like it's where the power is, and like there's almost this duality at the moment, isn't there? Where like everyone's a creator, and everyone's got access to YouTube, everyone can do home recording and stuff, but then the kind of the power and the control still sits massively with some of the big streaming services and with like labels and so on. And it's that, like, if we can begin to break that back down again so that the technology is still doing the job it is to create and get the content out there, but you can start to kind of remove that monopoly and kind of crowdsource the ownership again, and create a more sustainable like business model. Like that's really what we can start to get to. It's just I'm sure it's still some way off. Yeah, and I think until then, I mean, this situation at the moment is almost shown that the model is broken because of the amount of support that's been required. We talked about everything in episode 1, right, around just how struck by lockdown the music industry has been, particularly live music. But that's why it's been interesting watching some of the kind of larger bodies and organizations and companies trying to do something about it. There's that, Sony put together their kind of music global relief fund, that's like $100 million. As Live Nation, who are not usually the first to like do the right thing in this instance, they finally caved to like fan and Congress backlash and about like refusing refunds originally for cancelled concerts, and have issued out their massive refund plan that Joe alluded to back in episode 1. Like there's areas where it's happening and there is some support going back into the industry, but it's scary. You feel almost like that should have happened straight away, and ideally you'd have an industry where it wouldn't be so necessary that's the thing to keep people afloat. What else there's like PPL, the British licensing company, that was like an advance. They were doing advance payments like of all their license royalty stuff. There's about 24 million issued there right early on in the crisis. Apple have done their like 50 million relief fund for indie labels, and giving people like free access temporarily to Final Cut and Logic and stuff.
Yeah,
Bandcamp were waiving fees. I thought one that was an interesting, again, double-edged sword is what we saw from Spotify. This again, I think Joe talked about a bit on episode 1, didn't you, mate? That was their music relief program. So on their like fund, you've got people can donate to one or multiple chosen causes, and then Spotify will match up to like $10 million total. And artists get to pick their like featured fundraising pick on their profile, all this sort of stuff. But there's this like feature within there of like the tip jar, which is essentially allowing people to donate to artists via like PayPal or whatever. If they like activate an additional little button on their profile. And to me, I just found that one a little bit difficult because it's essentially sidestepping what we were talking about before, that you've got a platform here where, you know, it's doing great things for the propagation of music, but there's a lot of challenge over, can artists really profit properly from just being on the platform, getting their music out there? So if you require a tip jar feature to help artists, is that almost like shifting the onus away from the platform doing what it can to support artists, and instead kind of appealing to the public, similar to when we had all the like, you know, fundraise for, you know, let's crowdfund for the NHS, and it's like, and it was like the same with, you know, crowdfunding for the NHS and stuff, right? Where it's like, this is a funded body, like a national institution. It shouldn't 100%. Need to be propped up by public fundraising. It's kind of the same with the tip jar. Like it's good that there's a way to contribute towards your favorite artists in a way, but it's almost like an admission of guilt in the fact that streaming royalties aren't sufficient enough to support artists alone, and letting the listeners fix it instead of like actually addressing that it's a problem that goes much deeper with like rights holders, NDAs, and like just, you know, it's a kind of, and the consumerist shift we talked about, right? That music is commoditized, and that goes back to like like LimeWire days.
Oh, do you not think that if companies like Sony and Apple at a time like this can find 100 million or 50 million, they're obviously, do you know what I mean? They're obviously making a lot of income. I'm sure there's a lot of artists which are losing out on a lot of possible income on unfair deals. I mean, I've heard it enough times that the industry is never fair to artists until you really get somewhere. But
this is it, right? You need a long-term solution.
Well, I think there are some really cool platforms that are sort of on the rise at the minute. You know, you got things like Patreon, for example. Because the thing is, I never really...
What is Patreon?
I mean, I don't know a huge amount about it, but it seems like it's basically like... It's sort of like a fan page, and you basically buy sort of subscriptions to people's pages, and they'll sort of give you, you know, exclusive content, give you like... They'll just show you like their demos that they're working on, all this kind
Joe,
of like...
basically all those girls on Instagram where you're paying for their OnlyFans accounts. It's basically like that, but not just for getting pictures of a.
yeah, it's the musical version of OnlyFans. Yeah, that's literally what it is. Because I think one thing that people used to do, you know, was like the crowdfunding thing, but I just found that kind of a bit weird, to be honest. I just found it kind of strange, like the idea of asking people for money so that you could just, you know, create something. I found it a bit odd, but I like the idea of Patreon because it's sort of like you're paying the artist money so that you can, you know, so that they can fund their projects and stuff. But it's, you know, they're having to actually add value for you. You know, it's not just charity. It's like they're actually subscribing to get your services. You know, so I like that.
Yeah, I think in a way that's like subscribing to a YouTube channel. Guy's got a YouTube channel and he's making decent content. I mean, in a realistic fashion, it's the same as when you switch on your TV each week and watch a TV show. You switch in every couple of days to watch a guy's YouTube channel. It's almost like watching a TV series, by which point pay some subscriptions to Netflix and Amazon Prime to watch TV shows. So why shouldn't artists take that middleman out of it and have the ability to go, look, if you just want to pay for my stuff, pay this each month, all my stuff for free. I don't see anything wrong with that personally. I think that's completely fair. I think that middleman Sorry, yeah. One last point. That middleman, having that middleman in between is like, why the hell should the guy in between, just because he goes, I know you and I know you, why don't we put this together, make more than the guy that spent months, like, do you know what I mean, filming and editing, or recording and editing and mixing a music or a film or TV series? At the end of the day, in any sort of art, the guy who's the creator and the mastermind behind it realistically should be the guy who gets the most benefit out of it, surely. Do you know where I'm coming from? Or do I seem a bit?
And it's,
I
but
agree.
it's interesting what you were talking about with the, like, if you regularly tune into this one person, be it like a YouTube channel or whatever, it's like, you know, it's the same as subscribing to, or like, you know, it's the same as if you were buying a box set almost, or it's your favorite TV show you tune into, and you'd want them to be getting revenue. And it's been interesting seeing that pivot, right? Because you probably remember like Pledge Music, which, you know, the original like kind of like crowdfunding platform for musicians for like funding specific albums, kind of basically like Kickstarter for music. But exactly like you're saying there, like this more regular funding, be it something like Patreon, which is obviously quite generic. You know, there's Patreons out there for all types of industries. You know, there's that same model of like a monthly kind of subscription basis has been added now to, you know, to YouTube's model. You know, there's like the little like join community. You've got like on Twitch, you can obviously follow someone, but then you can subscribe and actually mean that they get some like bonus revenue on a regular basis. So it's like, it's giving people a proper revenue stream rather than it just being, help me fund this, you know, this one-off project or this one-off album, which again makes it slightly more sustainable.
That's it. And like, I think we need to see more like bigger companies that have a bit of a weight, whether it's in like movies, TV, music, theatre, dance, gaming, anything that like is creative and has like editing and like stuff that's all very similar sort of like aspects to each of these sort of things. They're very similar things you'd learn in college or university, similar qualifications. You see big companies like we saw with like Travis Scott with Fortnite, how they like did that massive advertisement for his new song with Kid Cudi, The Scots, which I will say I actually watched on Fortnite, and it was, to be honest, as a virtual thing, it was crazy how much effort they'd gone to. It was like a good 15 minutes of a completely different like sort of experience that I've ever had being a gamer, and they went through so much like effort to like pull as much people in to watch that. I mean, 12.3 million concurrent players watched it, and over 28 million watched it over 5 different separate showings, which was, it's insane numbers. That's 28 million people over 5 15-minute viewings. That means in the space of what, an hour and 15 minutes, 28 million. But think about the amount of effort put in if that was for one video on YouTube left for 24 hours. But it's sad that the only reason Epic Games and Fortnite would have got involved is because the weight Travis Scott has in the industry. Why can't we see more smaller artists, more independent labels, more
platform,
of these low down sort of, yeah, like seeing more help from bigger aspects of industries actually trying to pull them in and use them, rather than just only like, or help them, sorry, rather than only using people they see as a, well, they're worthwhile to us. I know it's business and everything, but I think it would be a lot nicer to see more networking between companies and artists, and between other artists and industries, you know, if you get what I'm trying to say, and sort of see the other avenues start to open up, which could allow other artists and other people to gain different incomes and livelihoods.
Like, it feels very new and modern and stuff, right? Because the iteration we're seeing of it at the moment is so new and so different. Like you said, we've not seen anything like it. But aside, there's been a couple obviously on Fortnite, Marshmallow and Deadmau5 and stuff. But it's almost like a continuation of a trend that's been going on for years. Like we started off with those really weird like hologram performances from like Tupac and Frank Zappa and Dio and like MJ and stuff. So like, and they were always a bit kind of like,
remember those,
a bit odd, a bit almost like, oh, is this? Do we need this? But then like,
I don't know. I rated the Tupac one. Like Tupac is a G man, and like his music like has such meaning and message, and that man was so good at spitting and his like, lyrics. And I'm a huge Tupac fan, and like I think that was a really nice effort to like try and bring back an artist, which to be honest, realistically, sadly, like was taken way too early. I think that guy had potential to be something more of the legend than he already is. Do you know what I mean? And that's just sad, but I get what you're trying to say. It's not ever going to be the same. It's not ever going to be, like you say, it's always going to be something a bit like, this is amazing, but It's just something that's quite not right.
Yeah,
Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, in most respects.
It's less about it being not right, but rather just I just find it interesting that this idea of merging like tech and music, and in modern days now that ends up often being like gaming and music as well. Like, it's something that's been going on for quite a while. Like, if we go right back like 10, 15 years, or whatever, I remember the old chat room Habbo Hotel from many years ago, and like Calvin Harris, Justin Bieber, Miley Cyrus, like went into like Habbo Hotel and did like meet and greets and this sort of thing. And there was like virtual gigs back when like Second Life was a thing, before that like petered out. So it's like, it's really interesting now seeing these new examples of it, but it's not like this has never been thought of before. So I'd love to see it like become more normalized and gain more traction, because there's so much interesting stuff still happening in the industry here. There was it Block by Block West Festival, was like a like Minecraft basically festival they put together, like featuring, who was it, Pussy Riot, Idols, Massive Attack. They had Square Garden Festival, which again was also in Minecraft, which was like 100 Gex, the Noise Pop Duo, like Charlie XCX, Kashmir Cat, and so on. So like, it's happening, and these are like, again, more innovative ways of using the tech, not just like going online, doing a live stream. So it's like, it doesn't, we talk about how the music industry is evolving, and it's like, it doesn't just have to be music performance, right? It's a case of just finding out what are the other ways that you can connect with your fans through your own passions. A band that myself and some of the guys I used to play with are friends with, called Wars, have just been literally going on and streaming like Warzone and stuff on Twitch now. And like the guys in Evade Escape, again, that we're good friends with, like, have been just inviting fans into their like Zoom Q&As to just hang out once they're done with the main questions and stuff. So it's like, it's just nice to let people in whatever way you can.
I'll tell you what, the mid-level bands who are getting on pretty big tours, but they're not making a huge amount of money necessarily, I feel like they probably have to think, well, is it worth flying to like Japan to play a show? Is it like worth getting the plane tickets and sleeping in, the van and all that kind of stuff, when you can just sort of do it at home? I don't know. Is that going to be a thing? It'll be quite interesting, I think, actually.
Yeah, maybe, because
I know what you're trying to say.
From home being something that's going to be normalised for office workers and stuff, and it's like, why not also music to some extent?
Yeah, for sure.
I think it could definitely be a thing where smaller bands who have like, when like you see those small bands, like, I don't know, I think our Spotify like shows one area somewhere like in a random little country where somehow one of your songs is like known, and you have a few fans, and like those small fans, like that small group of fans, they're never realistically going to get to see that band unless that band gets bigger. I think it could definitely be a thing where we see smaller bands get the ability to do live shows for fans which they wouldn't usually be able to play live for, if you get what I'm trying to say. That I definitely feel could be a thing.
Yeah. I mean, it could be just really weird. I mean, it could be a case of, imagine if, bands that would usually travel around the world would just only play, shows that are actually fairly close to them, and then only do the sort of virtual shows for things that are like, really far away,
I think we might see that as it comes out of lockdown a bit. I think when different countries get to different stages of the waves, I think a country like, for instance, on a tour where part of that country's on lockdown because they've had a little outbreak, and next like 4 weeks they can't be there, and it's like, well, we can play the show in our hometown because the lockdown restrictions are lifted, but we can't over there. So do you know what I mean? I think you might with that happening until everyone sort of this stabilises or just sorts itself out. I think you might see that, but I don't know, it'd be interesting to see if you actually see it, like you say, as like a consistent thing afterwards. Are you going to see bigger bands, to save money, rather than, like you say, to get the plane ticket to take everyone over there to do the show, and not just do it cheaper,
especially if travel and like visas and stuff become more difficult off the back of a combination of Brexit and the insurances potentially going up after we come out the back of this, just again because parts of the industry are trying to keep themselves protected for the future. So yeah, there's only going to be probably more barriers, and it's about how we overcome those, right?
Here's a question. What do you guys think will be or want to be the single most important change to the industry after this is over? Do you think it will be like changing how streaming is going to be, like the percentages, or do you think it's going to be
I'll
like
tell you what,
how music's delivered, like Ollie's
I think
talking
it'll be
about?
people
Or
realizing that, I mean, streaming and that kind of stuff is actually a viable sort of, source of income, because I think so many people think that
Mm.
gigging is the only way. And sure, don't get me wrong, you can get paid a decent amount for playing shows, which is great. Um, but I think, that there are actually some really sick artists. You got like these sort of like there's this sort of rap kind of like this emo rap kind of scene going on at the minute, which is quite cool. Like artists like Shinigami and that kind of stuff. They're all literally doing really well off literally just streaming, which I just find pretty
yeah,
cool. And I just hope that people sort of I guess notice that and jump on that sort of bandwagon, I guess. And
Well, it's like we said earlier, right? It's going beyond just traditional streaming and thinking like, okay, the traditional business model is broken,
yeah,
but how do we embrace this technology in a way other than the kind of current mass way of just going, okay, I'll create tracks and I still have to work towards an album. It's like, well, no, you don't. We've already evolved past through like single culture, but then do you get to a point where, like you say, you're writing like almost like shorter lifetime, like topical tracks. You're like doing these like live events and things where you're welcoming people in. You're doing collaborations. I think
yeah,
a combination of that plus like more transparency between all the different parties involved and the different like stakeholders financially, so that we get to a better model. I think it's the thing I'd really like to see from the back of this. I think that it just that you get like more of a meaningful digital footprint, where it's not just your tracks now live online, but rather this kind of global music community. And it's not to diminish the importance of live music. I think that hopefully another outcome of this is that by being deprived of live music, people will really see the value of it and realize how much they've missed it. Because
for sure.
definitely.
because you do just feel like everyone talks about how much they appreciate music and appreciate live music, but we all know the struggles, right? As like small time touring artists, to get a proper packed out show, it just doesn't happen, especially in areas where there's like so many alternative venues or nights out that people could be at. So hopefully, if people see like shit, the scene and the venues have almost died a death from this. Like, I don't want that to happen. I want to be a part of keeping it alive. Yeah. But as you say, if we do have like a tech evolution and there's more virtual touring, virtual gigging and stuff, it might really like reduce the carbon footprint of the whole industry as well,
100%.
which would be a nice takeaway. So there's lots of things that could come from it and lots of positives.
I must admit, I definitely agree with both of you. I think, like Nick's point, I definitely think and hope that because people haven't had live music, people are going to actually appreciate it more, make more of a chance to go out and see bands and go down the local pub and see a bit of music and maybe go and listen to and see bands they wouldn't usually, or artists they wouldn't usually see, and maybe actually try and support the industry a bit more, and hopefully it might get back on its feet a bit quicker. And the same as with Ollie's point as well, I hope that a lot more bands take advantage, or a lot more, I stop saying bands, a lot more artists take advantage of streaming services, but at the same time I hope streaming services and labels and publishers actually start to give back to artists a little bit more and understand that the difference, that when something like this happens, they're all okay, and it's all the musicians that, even though in all the hard work, pay for a lot of these labels, like give a lot of these labels a big income and a big revenue. They should get a little bit more back, so that if this does happen, they're not the ones that completely find it hard. It should, do you know what I mean? It should be a bit more fair, I feel it's a bit out of touch at the moment. I'm sure a lot of people would agree with that.
Yeah, no, that's true. Well, I think I'll tell you what. I think it will give artists a bit of a kick. I think, because when venues sort of reopen and stuff, they're going to need to ensure that like the venue is packed, because they will obviously be struggling massively. The small independent venues. So they're going to basically be like, they're going to have to ensure that the venue is completely packed, which means that they are going to be looking at, realistically they will be looking at your social following and all this kind of stuff to make sure that you can actually draw people to the gig.
Well, that's what a lot of people go by. That's what I'm on about when I say, like, earlier about how big companies and big aspects of the industry don't take a chance on the little guy sometimes. It's the same with venues. A lot of big venues, which a lot of people would love to play, and I'm sure artists could perform and do well in, not allow bands because it's like, oh, well, you guys might not bring a crowd. But it's like, yeah, but if you put them on a show with the right band, people will check that band out, and then they might check. I mean, people are going to check that band out through the other the band they're playing with, and then those guys might turn up not just for the last band, but for the support band as well, the support artist as well. And you know what I mean? You just all round it could offer opportunities. A lot of I think that's just a lot of people's attitude is because there isn't a lot of money in music. Before you get to the top, a lot of people have to be very careful in how they go about their business. I think to make sure they do get an income, they do get a pool, and like you say, Ollie, for a venue, they do get people turning up and buying tickets and buying drinks
it's like
and stuff.
Democratization of responsibility, right? Like these situations work when you've got a venue that's known and has like an established kind of local scene, and you've got a good promoter who actually makes an effort themselves as well to get fans to the venue. They're not just relying on the band, especially if the band's travelled from far afield.
Definitely,
and
yeah.
You've got a band that turns up and is professional and puts on a kick-ass show and hopefully has a bit of draw as well. But like it's only when that shifts and you have either a promoter that makes no effort or you've got a band that doesn't do the bare minimum that's expected of them as well. And I think everyone's been burnt. Like promoters have been burnt by bad bands have been burnt by bad promoters, and it's like anything, right? You just need people to do what's kind of expected of them and have integrity to do justice to the scene.
As we know, these times have been hard, and as artists ourselves, we understand a lot of people may be feeling the pinch and struggling themselves with what's going on. So we're going to include some links in our YouTube upload and possibly any other descriptions of where you might find this podcast. Just with a few links and a few descriptions of places you may be able to go and may be able to get some help. So just to quickly read off, we have PRS's for Music's Emergency Relief Fund, grants for up to £1,000, as well as a Sustaining Creativity Fund, Musicians Union Coronavirus Hardship Fund, one-off £200 grant for members. Association of Independent Music, AIM, support fund aimed at contractors and freelance workers in the industry, £1,000 to each of the 1,000 workers within 2 months. Musicians Coronavirus Hardship Fund, which is a one-off grant of £500. Music Venue Trust Emergency Fund for grassroots music venues. Local authority and council support. Worth speaking to your local councillors, guys, to see what options might be available. Outside of funding, there's also tons of information online to help you guys out with creating music and videos from home, collaborating with others, engaging with your fans, and more. So check it out and keep on creating. We'll drop a link in the description to a great summary from ACM, which is the Academy of Contemporary Music, which is in Guildford, that some of you guys might find helpful. As we said, guys, if any of you guys need help, click on the links and leave them below, and hopefully you guys might be able to obviously get some help and have a bit of everyone else to support you in these times. So the last thing we're going to chat about quickly is what you guys as fans can actually do to also do your bit to help at a time like this. So I mean, the obvious one is sharing music with people. What other ideas can you guys think of?
Well, I think there are a few ways, really. I think just, as I said before, Patreon is a great site, I think, because that can be quite a good income stream for artists.
Stream. They might be flawed, but every little helps, right? Follow artists, send them some love as well. It's quite nice when you're sitting in lockdown in silence, not able to connect with fans. Just like get in touch, make us feel like our community is still going. Yeah. Buy tickets for rescheduled shows as well, because in a lot of cases as well, like these shows that are being put in the diary now for like a year's time, like they're dependent. They need the money now to keep going till then, and to guarantee that the event actually happens. You can hit up platforms like Bandcamp for music, where especially
Bandcamp's a good one.
I'm not sure.
Bandcamp is a good one because it gives money back to the artist, which is actually good. It gives
exactly.
A little bit more.
I'm not sure if they're still waiving their fee, but
does.
It's definitely a place where more money will go back into their pockets than on a lot of the conventional purchase platforms. Look out for like crowdfunded projects or unique creations that artists are like working on online. Get behind them. There's lots of like specific venues as well. You might have a local venue that's under threat of closure. I mean, just hit them up yourself. See what you can do to help. There might be things you can do beyond money, right? We keep talking about the financial things, but just see what you can do to help. Speak to people, because the industry can survive if we all keep coming together. It's
Yeah, sometimes sometimes all like people need is like either like someone to talk to, or might even need just a helping hand in, like, you know what I mean,
Yeah, I
anything.
mean,
And like the thing is as well, if people are talking about this, sooner or later people are going to start connecting and starting to get it. And like we said, sharing with music, just share the links we've shared earlier with people you might know, because anyone you know might be in trouble. And just as like everything else, like Nick's just discussed, share and talk about it with people you know, because the more you do, the more people are going to start to become aware and actually start doing this.
amen, man.
but yeah, no, I think you're right. It's just drop them a line and just say, keep creating. It's really cool, like your content and whatever. Just sort of keep the sort of morale going as well, because I think that's obviously an issue too.
Definitely, man. Sometimes you need someone just to give you like a pep talk and a kick up the arse and be like, look, things are going to be fine. Like, these are shit times, but there's a lot of positives going on as well in the background that, do you know what I mean, doesn't obviously in today's media get as much attention, because everyone loves to read a bad story. But I mean, we've all just got to like stick together, stay positive, and hopefully like in the next year or so, this is all going to sort itself out, and we'll be fine, and then we'll carry on and things will go back to normality. And hopefully there'll be some good points from this we can take on that we've discussed in this show, and people will be able to continue doing afterwards.
Thanks again so much for tuning in, guys, and for sticking with us. It's been quite a long episode as well, so if you're still listening at this point, awesome, really appreciate it. I hope you've enjoyed it and the other 2 episodes. We'd really love to know what else you guys have seen that's out there, what artists have made you smile by doing something outside the box, or what digital events have you been tuning into. So drop some comments below. In a moment, we're just going to list off a few of the more like weird and quirky things that we've seen out there as well, that might be fun for you to look up. But again, please do tune into us again. If you like this, like us, subscribe, comment, get in touch with us directly, like we've said before, or find us at Follower Official UK on Facebook and Instagram. And hopefully we'll catch you again for the next episode. If you are sticking around and you're still listening to us, a few fun things you might want to go and check out online. We've seen the Dutch public broadcaster VPRO using AI to create their next Eurovision hit. That's like expanded out now. There's like 13 teams across Europe doing stuff. So check out Uncanny Valley, Beautiful the World. It's the Aussie entry, really like synth heavy, very odd lyrics. There's some other like AI music stars like Hatsune Miku that you might have heard of. She's like a Japanese virtual singer based on a Yamaha Vocaloids like software voice bank, fronted by a kind of anime 16-year-old girl. Very weird, but GQ called her like the most exciting addition to Coachella's 2020 lineup, because she was actually on Coachella's 2020 lineup. She's done collaborations with like Lady Gaga, Pharrell Williams and stuff. And yeah, like hopefully these sorts of things out there will just let you see that there's a lot of really fun, really exciting, weird stuff going on in the industry. It's certainly not dead. It's alive and kicking, and hopefully will be for years and years to come. So get out there, guys. Let us know what's making you tick, and we'll see you next time.